You're one person on one team that went from supporting 20 offices to 20,000 offices. You went from having a lot of help desk tickets to too many to keep up with. You've kept your company connected and productive during unprecedented times. But employee expectations are high and only getting higher. There isn't enough time in the day, and you're running out of steam. You're great at what you do, but you need help. So, while you have all our backs, ControlUp has yours. With billions of hours of machine learning, problems that take hours to fix take minutes to solve. ControlUp automatically sifts through all the data from issues collected across millions of devices to find the right fix within seconds. And it enables your entry-level team members to troubleshoot and remediate complex issues. It increases your IT team's productivity and consequently, the productivity of your entire workforce. ControlUp automatically solves problems before they even become problems, keeping help desk tickets low and employee morale high. Work from anywhere is not going away, and neither is ControlUp. Thor has his hammer. You have ControlUp.
Good morning or good afternoon or maybe even good evening, depending on where you are from. Welcome to this ControlUp webinar, where myself and our guest from Forrester Consulting, who you will hear much more from later on, will talk about how ControlUp can help you save time, money, and stress. And I think the past year has been, not only, because of the pandemic, but also the impact it has had on the way we work, which obviously has affected us individually as employees of companies, but also as IT leaders and IT professionals. This effect on how we do things has been obvious. And it marks a big change from how we have been doing things in the past. Personally, my background has been in the world of EUC and virtual computing. So I started in 2001 with Citrix, and there has always been a strong focus on the virtual workplace. But the reality has been that a lot of knowledge workers have been very focused on working in physical workplaces, offices. Maybe a part of them have been working remotely from time to time, but the majority of knowledge workers in most of the companies I've worked with, and not only worked for, but also worked with, the focus has been very much in investing in physical workplaces to create an exceptional company culture. But obviously, the last year, a lot of things changed. And we've had 2020, and so far in 2021, for many of us, these things haven't changed. It's the way we work. These new work styles, some people are very focused on work from home and remote work, but we see more and more people talking about these hybrid work styles going forward. And what we hear from a lot of our customers is, how can we find ways, better ways to relay that company culture that we've built so carefully over these years when people are not necessarily all in one place. So what we've seen over the last year is a lot of our customers investing in new digital workplaces. The offices are still there, and for your individual companies, there might be kind of a compromise, right? Some people might be coming back, some people might not be coming back, but there's definitely a need to invest more and more in these new digital workplaces. And a part of that is just investing in the infrastructure and the platforms and the software tools. But because these users have either this laptop or desktop or device that connects them now with work and with this corporate culture or this company culture, it is essential that the user and the employee or the partner, if it's external, get a really good digital experience when using these new digital workplaces. And it is not just IT, but IT will play a key role in delivering and ensuring a great digital employee experience. Uh, I was on the sales side last year, so I worked as a sales engineer here at ControlUp. And in many of my conversations with customers, we saw other teams coming into this conversation as well. This is no longer just an IT thing. Human resources, even up to the C-level, we see that this employee experience and this very critical element in there, the digital employee experience, has become something that goes beyond just IT. But IT will be the team that needs to bring in tools and platforms to ensure this great digital employee experience. And that is really what we are focused on here at ControlUp. And in our conversations with customers, we hear many challenges. Every customer is different, and you will hear some things today from Eric later on about a particular customer we worked with who had particular challenges and particular use cases. But one thing or three items that are very common are these two challenges that customers are now struggling with to do and to kind of figure out how we're going to do this better. And the first one is really around improving visibility. So let's go into a little bit more detail on that. And after that, we'll talk about productivity. And then I'm going to hand it over to Eric, who will talk a lot more about the kind of IT spend aspects of a ControlUp implementation. So let's have a look here at this first item about improving visibility. And some of the things we hear from our customers is that where the majority of their workforce used to work in offices, which, some companies have one office, some have 20, but all of a sudden, almost overnight, last year, they had to go from managing maybe 20 offices and monitoring users in 20 offices to 20,000. If you have 20,000 remote workers, maybe in your environment, it's a little bit less, but you can see that there was a big jump in where all your users were. And this really created an issue with the visibility and control over where the user works. When it's on your own network, you typically have a lot of control, right? People are on your local network, you can see, you have that line of sight. But when a user is suddenly working in a different location, especially from home, there is this visibility gap and this blind spot, if you will, in seeing what is going on and being able to give the employee the recommendations they need to have a great digital experience. Because the employee didn't really change, right? They still want to be able to access their apps, have it work well, work fast, and they actually, maybe even have higher expectations now they're working from work. Where in the past, maybe you could say, well, everything looks okay in our data center. It must be something, on your end, right? If there was the occasional remote worker. Now, with all your employees being remote, or the majority of your employees being remote, this is not something that is acceptable anymore as an answer. So you really need to be able to, find a solution that can help you see and give better service levels to your users. And I have some customers, they talk no longer about service level agreements. They also talk about experience level agreements. And this really, is something that customers are looking at. And this is not a temporary thing. Like I said in my introduction, there could be a difference between companies. ControlUp was actually mostly remote before the pandemic, but I know many companies that are looking at bringing maybe some workers back, but it's definitely a change from before. There will be a level of it's here to stay when it comes to this remote work and this hybrid work approach. And ControlUp can help you with this particular item of this visibility in remote workers. And this is not the only solution we have for this, because every customer is different. But one of our key technologies and key capabilities is through both our remote DX and edge DX functionality, which really allows you to see what is going on with the user where they are. Is there maybe an issue with their Wi-Fi connection where they're working? Which of course could be caused by, I don't know, maybe other people working from home, or children, having to or go to school from home. And there's all these other factors that affect the experience for the users, and being able to see things like their local Wi-Fi connection as well as their internet performance on where they work is something that is a very unique capability in ControlUp that can help you solve this particular challenge. And as I said, Eric will talk in more detail about one of our customers he worked with. And this is actually a quote from them during the work Eric did. And they actually looked into expanding on what they use with ControlUp to get exactly that visibility, what they need. And you can see here that they actually experienced this, that during the pandemic, that all these users suddenly working remotely, now they can see if they maybe have a Wi-Fi issue or an ISP issue, maybe there's not enough bandwidth on their local network, and it really helped them get that additional visibility into where the user works. The second challenge we hear a lot is around productivity. Now, productivity is a bit tricky because there is a cost aspect to this, right? When a user cannot access their apps, or when they have an issue with an app and they cannot use it to serve their customers, obviously there's a cost element there with this loss of productivity. And some of the things that we hear our customers say is, well, this is no longer just about I can't have access to my apps. Employees want to have access to these apps at different times as well. It's no longer I go into the office, I work from 9 to 5, and now I'm done. It's no longer that really kind of like well-defined time frame. And even if that wasn't the case in your organization, because the work style has changed of your employees, people are more likely to maybe do something during the day, either because they don't have another time to do it, or it could be because of family life, and possibly log into work later. Work has become kind of intertwined with life at home, and although there's work to do in figuring out where those boundaries lie depending on your location, it is a fact that people don't work these kind of like predictable hours like they did in the past. And that means that you also need to start thinking about how I'm going to use certain technologies to help me with that, because you probably can't stay up 24/7, which is something that, of course, technology can help a lot with. And it's not just about the availability of applications. It's also about if there's an issue impacting the user's productivity, for example, because an application is slow, we need to be able to more quickly find the issue and fix the issue. There's a third element here, which has to do with the adoption of new types of applications. I actually read this article. I think it was posted yesterday or maybe the other day. It's not the article you see here on the screen, but it talked about how more and more applications are actually not managed by you. They are SaaS applications. They come from, it's managed by the vendor, so you don't have direct control over the uptime and the availability of these applications, but knowing is half the battle. And ControlUp can, again, once more help you with figuring out how to get this visibility in the availability and the performance of your applications. Through continuous testing and proactive synthetic monitoring, Scout Bees from ControlUp can actually get you the insights you need in when applications are available, and really can help you getting ahead of the curve. Like I said, if you take an example like a third-party application, for example, Microsoft 365, the Office applications, we've seen some downtime over the last year, and it's not that you can really fix that. You're kind of dependent on Microsoft to bring these platforms back up. But the moment it goes down, all your employees start opening tickets and they start going to the help desk, say, hey, I can't access my applications. For you to actually know that when it happens, even maybe before Microsoft updates their status page or another vendor, is already a capability that we can deliver through proactive monitoring and can actually help you kind of getting to your users, saying like, hey, yes, we know there's an issue. We are working on it together with Microsoft, or Microsoft is working on it, or Salesforce, or whatever platform you use, and can already reduce the workload on your support staff, which incurs a cost as well. In addition to that, all our products and technologies have automation features built in. So we in our kind of real-time monitoring product for EUC as well as for physical endpoints, we have features that can actually provide you insights from your own environment or from other customers that use ControlUp, and can help you setting up the right types of automation, even have some self-healing capabilities for your environment that can help you further reduce the number of support calls and increase employee satisfaction with the applications and environment they use. And I actually really like this quote because it kind of goes back to, well, you can't stay up 24/7 because we got to sleep. Well, ControlUp doesn't only help you to actually be able to sleep, right? Like by doing proactive monitoring when you're not watching it, but it also gives you a good night's sleep. And this is exactly what this customer said in using the automation software, or the automation features and the proactive monitoring features, but that really gives him that good night rest, making sure that their employees are getting what they need whenever they need it. And the third aspect is all about IT spending. And what I've seen as well, and you probably know this better than I do, is that last year, all of a sudden, we had this rush in investing in the platform, in new services, new applications, Zoom, DAS. You maybe expanded your VMware Horizon or Citrix environment. It was all about surviving. It was making sure that people who suddenly had to have access and had to work remotely had access to these services. This year, it is shifting really to making sure that what we've done last year, that it is working the way it should, that we spend our money efficiently, because one thing that really never changes is it's always the expectation of doing more with less. Although the overall numbers might be going up, there is more to do. There's these new technologies like digital employee experience where we just need to become more efficient. And so TCO and return on investment, so total cost of ownership and return on investment, are always high on the list, but now more than ever. And to tell you a little bit more about how one of our customers has looked at that and really tell you a lot more details about the total economic impact of ControlUp, I would like to introduce Eric. So I'm going to make Eric the presenter here. Let me see, where are you, Eric? All right. And he will talk a little bit over the next 20-25 minutes about the total economic impact of ControlUp.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you, Joel. Hello, everyone. I look forward to sharing a story of a ControlUp customer with you today that we interviewed and wrote up a TEI study for. So the agenda right now is I'm going to do an introduction, then I'm going to tell you what a total economic impact study is. Then we'll go through an executive summary, a high view of what this customer's experience were. Then we'll go through the customer journey and go into more detail on the actual results. So this presentation provides some highlights from Forrester's ControlUp TEI case study. Note on the right side, that it's just highlights. Information will be provided later on how to obtain the complete study. Now I'm going to read to you the opening paragraph from the study itself. So desktop and application virtualization platforms provide great value for many organizational use cases, but also creates operational challenges. Issues with underlying infrastructure, the network, and other factors can negatively impact the employee's digital experience. This study profiles a ControlUp client's experience with ControlUp implementation, integration, and management reporting, as well as its major role at issue prevention, identification, and resolution. I want to note that the client interviewed for this study previously had a different monitoring platform for their EUC environment. So for those of you considering ControlUp who do not have a monitoring platform today, there will likely be significant labor savings in lieu of the software savings that you will see here. So for well over a decade, Forrester has provided TEIs as a means for companies to get independent verification of positive results that they have been hearing from their customers. So we go beyond just a return on investment to tell the story. And so I will give you actually very soon, or Joel kind of gave you a story on the flexibility. This particular client has a primary use case of partners for their EUC environment, but we're able to add 2,500 of their employees to their ControlUp implement, to their EUC environment and to their ControlUp implementation to manage all that very simply during the pandemic. Another thing we cover is things like risk, and that would be perceived risk and maybe actual risk. So it could be things that turned out not to be true, so that you may have the same concerns, and whether this client had the same concerns but found them not to be true, or how they mitigated the risk when they occurred. So now I'm going to go through the process that we go through for the study very quickly. So ControlUp shared content with us to review, and we interviewed numerous people within the ControlUp organization, from the sales side, from the customer support side, from the product side, etc., and created a customer interview guide, interviewed the customer. In the case of a multiple customer study, we create a composite organization. In this case, we just created a financial model for what we learned from the customer and wrote a case study, and then got it completed and reviewed. This includes our research organization so that we validate that everything makes sense. So I'm going to let you read this yourself, but I want you to note the acronym, even though Joel said it earlier, it is EUC, and that is end user computing. That is used throughout the study. Now, there are three major points that I want to call out here. First of all, ControlUp identifies both EUC related issues as well as other operational issues that EUC users see. All ControlUp's single console solution is identifying 90% of all EUC related issues for this client, including those operational problems I just mentioned. And finally, ControlUp is identifying issues sooner, sometimes before they affect users, so they can be resolved with no effect on users at all. So these results are based upon a 3-year impact study for a client with over 20,000 devices, a combination, as I said before, partners and employees, and I'll go through that a little more later. Within that, there's a return on investment of 238%, benefits present value of $3.41 million, and a net present value of $2.40 million. So once again, I'm not going to read this quote, but per this quote, the customer can identify issues, go to root cause, and frequently resolve issues right within ControlUp. So things happen way faster than they happened before. So the customer had major challenges, and they included that they were never able to fully implement the previous solution due to an exploding database, due to that number of users, and performance issues with the solution. There were also times when the previous solution actually provided incorrect and incomplete information, and actions taken either didn't help or made matters worse. And I want to note that the customer also added that they have not had that sort of thing occur with ControlUp. So the key benefits of the solution, I'm going to just summarize here, I'll go into more detail in a little later, is a unexpected savings of the ability to combine virtual machine pools, and they saved $1.6 million over 3 years. Labor savings of the IT help desk agents and EUC administrators of $382,000 over 3 years, and the elimination of the software licensing supporting infrastructure and related service costs of $1.3 million. So, as I noted before, if you do not have an existing solution today, then there will likely be a large shift in savings for you from the third to the second benefit that shows here. So let's go through the interviewed organization a little. It is a global financial transaction company, over $15 billion a year in revenue. And as I said before, its business partners are the primary use of the system, but they added 2,500 employee devices during the pandemic, easily, successfully. So this is, this tells the tale of including that the single console solution for their EOC environment has been a game changer for this client because they're able to see the whole picture in one place. They're not jumping around from solution to solution. So this is the savings from the combined VM pools of $1.7 million over 3 years. I am going to read this quote. We can identify usage between the pools and combine images, sometimes reducing 3 pools into 1. Utilizing ControlUp, we could identify underutilized pools, match pools by applications used, and combine them. So it was really valuable for them to have all these capabilities of figuring things out in one place, and it was an unexpected value. It's not something that they were included in, where things were headed. And I want to note that, and I'll mention this again later, is that the customer did not have an estimate for software license savings associated with this benefit. This was just direct, infrastructure savings. So, obvious result of having fewer issues is that the help desk has less volume. So, one key thing, and Joel mentioned this capability, but they use it, very much within this client, and that is that they use automation scripts to proactively resolve issues, such as restarting unregistered devices and correct cache issues, eliminating manual recovery processes. And as I mentioned before, they are identifying some of these things and resolving them so that the customer never sees any negative outcome. There's no negatives for the users. It resolves beforehand, proactively. So then there's the elimination of the licensing and service. The previous solution was completely eliminated, and the on-premises databases were removed. ControlUp database is in the cloud and scales cleanly, and they have had no issues with that whatsoever. So there are benefits that could not be quantified. The interview is with a single person. And so seeing things from the perspective, for example, of the end users, frequently is hard. We're usually speaking with somebody from the IT standpoint. So anyway, let's start with the upper left-hand corner, the end user experience improvements and associated satisfaction improvements. So there are no surveys that say, hey, customers, employee or customer satisfaction surveys or partner satisfaction surveys. that show this, but they know fully well that the performance improvements and the outcomes have improved things for both the partners and employees involved. So there's satisfaction there. The upper right-hand corner that's what I mentioned before, is that they were able to, reduce the number of VM pools, but they were not measuring how much licensing cost reductions or other peripheral reductions that they were able to get out of that. The management dashboards and reporting in ControlUp have been beneficial, included higher level people within the organization as a result, and giving them more trust, to be honest, within the overall organization. The client spoke very highly of basically every level of ControlUp's team that supports them. And Joel mentioned the Edge DX solution previously. Note that this was in trial and went to production. It's now in general availability, but it was not used by the client long enough to include it in the financial study. But I did learn of events where children were gaming while things were going on, where they actually were able to identify within this tool where issues were for a particular client having issues. So this is a repeat of one of the prior quotes, but I wanted to add that the customer shared with us that they identified active issues during the POC that they had not even identified with their existing solution. So ControlUp took them to the next level. They knew more in this single console solution than they had with their prior solution, and they knew it as soon as as early as the POC. So the only reason I'm just showing this is, as you've pretty much heard before, the implementation was straightforward. The POC was relatively thorough. They were up within 2 weeks having the full implementation done. So the implementation costs and training and everything involved was very slight compared to the overall value of the implementation. And then there was some, this is a very large client, so there's some professional services and customer success management. Note is based upon the size of the contract as to whether, what its cost is. So just in summary, a return on investment of 238%, net present value of $2.4 million. You can see the cash flow, view on the right here. And so that wraps that up. And so I'm going to pass things back to Joel.
All right. Thank you, Eric, for walking us through some of the highlights and some of the numbers of this study. So I want to kind of bring it back to where I left off before I handed it over to Eric. And we talked about these three different areas, these three different challenges we hear a lot from our customers. The first one about improving visibility. The second one, talking about how can we make sure that users are being productive. And the interesting aspect of this, and I didn't really touch on this is not only employees you already have. We also have some customers using ControlUp to help with onboarding, right? So this is kind of the time to being productive. And then finally, where Eric definitely talked about in great detail, is the control of IT spending. And ControlUp really tries to help our customers with improving the visibility by giving them that extra insight in what is happening where the user is working. Very unique capability through both remote DX or Edge DX, depending on your specific use case, gives you more details about what is going on in the local environment, the local Wi-Fi, the local ISP of the user. And as I said, this is not just for EUC platforms like Citrix and VMware Horizon. We even do this for physical endpoints, and we really try to kind of bring everything together in one place. And I think that is sometimes underestimated, in when you're dealing with resolving issues for users. Yeah, sometimes you're like spending a lot of time in first finding where the issue is coming from because you have to go to the right console. ControlUp really kind of brings this end-to-end view all the way from your data center to the where your employees are working, and we do that in real time. Now, real time, there's different levels of real time. Most of our metrics have a refresh time of 3 seconds. So what you see is truly what you get. It's not like from 15 minutes ago or from 10 minutes ago. Real time, when you talk to ControlUp, is near real time, as quick as 3-second updates. When we talk about ensuring productivity, ControlUp can help you by implementing ways that you can become more proactive through proactive synthetic monitoring, by using some of our automation features driven by machine learning, and really with the goal to preventing help desk calls. And once there are help desk calls, because there always will be help desk calls, we want to make sure that you have the tools to reduce the time that these tickets are open. And that, of course, leads to a reduction in IT spending. Partially, you heard some examples here from Eric where this particular company had savings. There were some unexpected savings, but of course, labor saving is a big chunk of this. What that means for you, that of course depends on your environment. But we've seen, with this customer that Eric talked about, achieving an ROI of 238%, which meant in their cases less than 6-month payback period. Your mileage may vary. It could also mean that your return on investment is actually higher than this customer. So it really depends on your environment, and that's really what we want to talk to you about. So that is almost there. I am just checking here. Just give me a second. I saw a question coming in during the session in our QA or questions panel. There was a question about, well, obviously for this study, you used one particular customer, but my environment might be different. And Eric, feel free to chime in. You already kind of indicated that, if you're not, for example, replacing an existing solution, these numbers might shift. But in your experience as somebody who has been doing a lot of these studies, how do you answer questions like, well, how should I look at the information in the study?
So I guess I'll just say that I think that from what I know of ControlUp and its ability to interface with the major suppliers, the major EUC vendors in this area, means that they can most likely provide very valuable results quickly. That's the implementation time was impressive. So just let you know, having a SaaS solution like this is becoming more common and also leading to quick results, and usually the APIs and such are easier to deal with. So I guess that's where I would go on that. Not necessarily a history, I guess the experience with similar type vendors, not in this product space, but similar type vendors.
Yeah, and I think when I talk to customers about these kind of studies, some customers might be more like the customer you interviewed for this study. Some of them might be different industry, but it gives you an indication of where savings are possible. And yeah, ControlUp can definitely talk to you, the customer, to see, well, how can we kind of like look at your environment and bring in additional information from other customers to see how they experienced in it. Eric, you said like, well, yeah, we have these unquantified benefits in the case of this customer, either because it wasn't, HDX wasn't in use long enough, or they maybe haven't surveyed their partners or their employees to see, this kind of digital experience, the improvements there. How can we kind of like express that in time or money? So they just didn't have the data. And I think this is becoming more and more relevant in this world of digital experience and digital employee experience. You will see that ControlUp in the future will also look at bringing in these kind of user sentiment data through our platform. So this is a very interesting way, and definitely areas where every customer can look at. I see just another question coming in. How can I use ControlUp on a home computer or server? Well, that actually gets me right into some of the things I want to share before we wrap up here in a few minutes. So ControlUp can be, so first of all, let's talk about the TEI study. So we have it online now. So if you go to this URL, bit.ly/CU Forrester, it will bring you right to our landing page where you can download the full study. It's about 20 pages. It's a very easy read. Eric writes like he talks, very, very easy to follow. And, so it's great content in there. But if you actually want to see ControlUp in action and possibly even test it in your environment, like Eric said, this customer actually did a proof of concept of 1 month. You can go also to our website, or you can follow this URL, bit.ly/ControlUp demo, and book a demo with us, or even start your own trial. And our solution is hybrid. So we have a solution that is, partially runs in the cloud. It works end to end. So it doesn't matter if it's servers or physical endpoints, computers. We cover this kind of like full range of different deployment models. So if you want to learn more, definitely recommend you going to either of these two resources. And before we wrap up, I am going to play one more video, and remains just to thank you for attending the session today. I hope it was as useful for you as it was for us sharing this information. And thank you for your attendance.
Hello, I'm Todd from IT. People often ask me what this thing is, and I tell them it's the wheel of excuses. Yep, there was a time when all I could do was offer up excuses to employees' IT problems. Since more and more people are working from home, it was impossible to see what the issues were. Then I met ControlUp. He showed me that in real time, I could actually respond to people's problems, even if they were miles away. How his software provides real-time insights to EUC, VDI, and physical desktops, wherever they are. There's even suggestions and tools to fix even the most complex problems. ControlUp made me a superhero. Thanks, ControlUp.